This episode is proudly supported by OpenTable.
Nearly 1/3 of diners are booking same day. So they're making those decisions on the spot. And 10% are making their bookings within just a few hours. And so it's why it's so important to have booking software like OpenTable, which allows your diners to discover you. And so when restaurants are on platforms like OpenTable, they're much more likely to be discovered. We help diners to connect to restaurants. Ultimately, having technology, using technology, helps you to reattach to those diners.
Experience the power of OpenTable. For an exclusive offer, visit restaurant.opentable.com.au/DITW.
Some of the most memorable experiences in our lives are in these venues. They're in bars and restaurants. They're the pillars that kind of carry us through from celebrations and milestones, and they mean a lot. So being able to create places where people are making those memories and to be a part of what those memories look like for those people is just the best career I think I could be in.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Over the last 15 years, the lines have been blurred between restaurant and bar, as savvy operators have celebrated the beauty of both in unique venues, the focus being on a great night out, and food and drinks play the key roles in both. But what does it take to create and run a group whose focus is on great drinks and a unique food offering as well? Zara Madrusan is the co-owner of the Made in the Shade group in Melbourne. Zara, how are you?
Hi, I'm very well. How are you?
I'm really good. You've been part of this incredible evolution of the wine bar culture in Australia. What's it been like for you to be part of that?
It's been pretty full on. It's been an adventure. Michael and I sort of have a particular take on business and our approach to work, and it's mostly run at it and hope for the best. So we've been running for a few years, and it's been full on, but it's been great.
One of the interesting thing about all of your offerings is the emphasis on quality food offering as well. What's it been like trying to balance, that great drinks offering with the right food pairing too?
Yeah, look, we come from the bar world, unapologetically, I guess. Margot, our third venue, was a real step into the food world for us. We'd done Connie's Pizza previously at Heartbreaker, sticking, specifically to nailing that New York slice, which we both knew really well. So that was kind of easy. But going into, I guess, effectively a full restaurant offering with Bar Margot, under the guise of a bar with food, and still putting that focus on drinks was how we navigated it. I think the bar is something that we know so well that it was easy to sort of to own that, and the experience was led still by that bar offering, being able to have a great meal up at the bar. The role that drinks play in that dining space was where we started, and then food that you want to drink with really is where we live.
Tell us about where it all began for you. What lured you to a life in hospitality?
So I guess my early journey is less traditional in the realms of hospitality owners. I don't come from a hospitality family like Michael does. Michael grew up in restaurants. I had a bit of a kind of a tougher start. I was in a single parent family with 4 kids, and we kind of ate whatever we could get our hands on, really. My early start was a very simple kind of functional relationship with food. And it wasn't until I moved to London to go to Performing Arts College, actually at 16, that I suddenly realised there was a whole different world out there in regards to everything, but food and bev specifically. And like so many others, started working in hospitality to support my studies, and fell in love with it. mostly around the fact that what I was studying at that point a little bit further down the line was theatre and production and experiences, and hospitality was theatre and production and experiences. What I was doing in my part-time bar job was, I think, more relevant to what I was interested in than my theatre studies in many ways.
Tell us more about those early days. What were the real integral moments that really got your appetite for the industry?
Like I say, it was kind of coming from my mum was a great cook. I think when she had the time, she really cared about what she put on the table, but like I say, was really, really time poor, and often would have 4 siblings asking for different things and be trying to figure that out. But I remember things like I guess very early on, I got an appreciation for the role that food played in bringing us together. So being a bit of a hectic and a hustling sort of family, with 3 teenagers, and I was the youngest of 4, and then my mum on her own. It was the Sunday roast that she would somehow still put on every year. Coming from the UK, it was all about the Sunday roast. Would be the time then we would all sit around the table together, and it was probably the only time during that entire week that we'd maybe all be in the same room for longer than an hour. So that already played quite an important role for me. I think I recognised that at the time, but I knew that was that meal really sort of stuck with me. And in London, I'd be trying to replicate. And when I was feeling a bit lonely as a very young student in London, I know that I would sort of gravitate towards those like bistro pubs, those pubs that had great food and would put on and Sunday roasts, and I would probably from the age of 16 be kind of parking myself somewhere in one of those really cozy, beautiful pubs and trying to find a couple of friends to recreate that family experience, because that was so important to me from an early age. So I think the feeling of togetherness that food could offer, or that those venues could offer, was quite an emotional strand for me from an early age. And then from the crazy dance world, I actually had a dancing injury quite early on at about 18 years old. So I had to stop dancing for a while, and got pulled into the fashion industry at that time. So it was sort of stay in London and work as an editorial model that I'd been scouted for, or move back to Dorset and go back to school. And I felt like I had something to prove. I'd already moved up to London, and I'd told all my friends, I'm going to make it big in dancing and all this kind of stuff. So I stuck around and gave modelling a crack. And it was at that point that I had this crazy sort of life where, I didn't really have enough money to be buying myself dinner. I'd pretty often, if I was at home in the halls that I was living in, I'd be going up to the Tesco Express up the road to get a raw capsicum to have for my dinner, or an avocado or something, to try and see me through. So no romance in regards to food there at all. But for me, that was preferable to eating, from the canteen in the halls that I was living in. To then being invited into this mad world of fashion, where I was getting invited along to these dinners at places like Nobu or Annabelle's in Mayfair, and being given these incredible meals. I remember having frog's legs for the first time at 18. And just being like, what the, I've grown up on jacket potatoes, and now I'm eating frog's legs for free in Mayfair. So it was kind of like one extreme to the other, and fascinating. It was just suddenly like this world had opened up in front of me of nightlife scene, drinking, dining, was just kind of thrust in front of me, with really no previous experience. And I realized that eating could be an adventure, that socializing and dining and being out in these spaces was a whole journey that I was just on the cusp of.
Do you have any stories about that sort of the first period of time stepping into working in bars and what it was like finding your feet there?
Yeah, I actually started. I started working at Experimental Cocktail Club, which is kind of where it all happened for me. This was all around the time that I've just been speaking about. So I'm working in fashion on the side. I've just started my master's at this stage in theatre. So I'm, doing as everyone does in these big cities and trying to do, 10 things at once and just pay the rent. But I started working at Experimental Cocktail Club because a friend of mine was running some events and reservations for them, and they needed a hand on the door, and it was good money. And I said, I'll come and help out, maybe do one night a week. And I think it was, one week of doing a Saturday night shift. The next week I was on 4 nights, and, I just kind of like gelled with the team straight away. I couldn't believe, like the rate of pay that you could get working on the door in a London bar. It was crazy. Very, very unfair to the bartenders and for staff probably working within there that were probably on £5 an hour, but on the door you were getting maybe triple that. And it came with its challenges itself. I was the first person that you were greeted with in Chinatown in London. So we dealt with all sorts of types, as I'm sure you can imagine, and it was a bit of a baptism of fire in regards to dealing with people and serving people, but I gelled with the team really quickly and was so interested in what everyone was doing. I'm kind of always up in everyone's business. I'm trying to learn what everyone's doing and what they're about. So I was very quickly kind of acquainted with how the bar was run. I'd be chucking in my 2 cents to the owners about, what I thought could be better and different. And it just captivated me. It was a really busy venue from day dot. As Experimental Cocktail Club have now got lots and lots of venues around the world, but I think it's still their kind of most successful spot. So it was go from beginning to end of every shift, and finishing at 3 o'clock in the morning and getting the night bus home. It was a total wild ride. But yeah, I learned a lot.
You would have run into some pretty interesting characters working the door of a venue like that. Do you have any stories you can share from that experience?
I certainly do, yeah. It was a classic sort of London hosting vibe where, you've got a list in front of you, but you've got people queuing around the block, and you've got people that you want to be letting in that are halfway down the queue that aren't on the list, and you're doing all this kind of crazy, hand signals, eye movements, trying to be subtle, which is, you've got celebrities that you're trying to sort of, be very coy about, and get them in without causing, too much of a scene to anyone else. Otherwise, you're going to get, in heat with the managers or the owners for that celebrity getting in, having negative feedback, not wanting to come to the bar again because it wasn't subtle enough for them to sneak through or whatever. It's like a huge responsibility there. And then you've just got, terrible humans who have absolutely no respect for anyone who works in hospitality, and just come and make their demands at you, and are incredibly aggressive. So I was really fortunate to have an incredible a doorman that worked with me, Errol, who is still there to this day. I think he's been with them since day one, and he's worked the door 7 nights a week for the last 10 years. Absolutely incredible Albanian gentleman who took good care of me, and worked the door like a pro. So I learnt a lot from him, and we were like a little double act, I think, of London at that time. We were quite well known as the ECC door crew, quite a pair that you wouldn't expect, I guess, little Albanian dude and a tall blonde chick, but it was quite entertaining for most people.
What resulted in you coming to Australia?
So I'd been in London for about 8 years, and first moved up, like I said, to go to college. Was terrified, didn't really go outside of my immediate radius. Thought it was, this big city that I'd never be able to get to know and love. How would I ever kind of infiltrate it and find it familiar? And it wasn't until I was modeling full time that I was on my feet, pounding the pavement, going to castings all day, every day, and walked the entire scope of London pretty much daily. So I got really, really acquainted with, like the back streets of everywhere. Like I just understood how the whole patchwork quilt fit together geographically, and, therefore found all those cool little cafes or restaurants or spots down the back lanes that people didn't know about, and just fell in love with London entirely. I was completely captivated by it, and felt like it was absolutely home for a long time. And it wasn't until I finished my master's and I was working at ECC. I was also working in my first film production role for Future Cinema, Secret Cinema, who put on sort of these theatre and film combined kind of immersive events. Sort of my dream company. I just started working with them, but everything was just too much. I was working 4 nights on the door. 4 or 5 nights on the door until very, very late, getting up early and going into the office to work for Future Cinema, and finishing my dissertation at the same time for my master's. So I wasn't seeing my friends. I still, despite working my absolute arse off, was barely making enough money to live. And the increasingly grey weather just started to get me down a little bit. So yeah, I think like a lot of people, as much as I love the city, the grind, I was getting that little bit older. I mean, I was still only 23, but I've been there since the age of 16, and I was starting to feel like there wasn't a very easy future for me there. I think I just needed a break. I needed a break above all else. And in mind, I'd gone over to Berlin for the first time, actually, for a week to house sit for a friend and to try and finish my dissertation, take myself out of the madness and the social life in London, to try and get it done. And fell in love with Berlin because, for reasons I don't need to explain, just super cool, so much energy, and amazing people. And I thought, wow, I could do this. Maybe I'll come and spend some time here. I think at that point I realized I needed to leave London. I just wasn't sure where I needed to go. And then I had a friend, a bartender who I was working with at Experimental Cocktail Club, who was kind of going through a similar thing, and he felt like he needed a change of scenery, change of pace. But he was doing really well on the bar and wanting to further his career, so he was looking for somewhere that had a really thriving hospitality scene. And by this point, I'm kind of taking my work in hospitality quite seriously too, even though I'm not quite sure where I'm going to sit there. I'm not trained on the floor. I'm not trained on the bar. I'm kind of just this like overall bossy boots observer that's running the door and helping kind of run the floor from that perspective. But I haven't got any specific kind of skills based training, so I'm sort of interested in what that's going to look like if I go and jump into another industry. But he was so passionate about Melbourne. He'd had lots of friends there. He'd known lots of people that had been working with him at ECC and at other venues that were over there at the time, and could potentially line him up with work and stuff. So he said, "Look, I'm going to go over to Melbourne. You should come." So I'm doing this sort of Berlin-Melbourne sums in my head, and I guess it was the fact that a friend was coming over here that swayed it for me, because it would be a bit more familiar with someone that I knew, and pretty much just booked a ticket and said to my friends, we're going to need to have a leaving party, because I have this really deep gut feel that I'm not coming back in 6 months. And of course, everyone was like, "Of course you are. I'm not even going to come and meet you for a drink to say goodbye. We'll see you in a few months' time when it all goes tits up." but I think I knew at that time that I needed to have a real change and to do something different. And yeah, landed here, and that was kind of that.
What were your thoughts of the Melbourne hospitality industry and the bars that were around at the time of your arrival?
What struck me, and what I kept saying to my friends when I would occasionally get the right time to be able to speak to them on Skype or whatever, was the people. The people kept me here, and the people, I mean, specific to the industry, I think, but the people more broadly, the community. I landed in Fitzroy, Collingwood, so an amazing pocket to start off with, but. Then, starting by being introduced to friends of friends who were running bars or working in venues over there. And, within like 2 nights, I had someone offering me somewhere to live, somewhere to work, a place, a shoulder to cry on, whatever I needed. There was just these total strangers who were embracing both my friend and I in this new little community. And I was just, again, coming from a big city where you really have to prove yourself constantly. And it's incredibly competitive. It was really refreshing. It was really warm and inviting. Everyone kind of seemed like they wanted everyone to, do better. Everyone was willing to kind of give you a bit of a leg up or a suggestion of, how to, find people, like-minded people or what have you, or to find work, like I say. So it was really, that was a really, really wonderful start. And then I think I realized that the industry, I mean, this is my view of it. It's probably a little bit different now, but my view of it then was it was quite tight-knit, particularly the bar world. There was a lot going on, but it was quite focused and close. I think that's the benefit of the Melbourne scene being, I guess, less sprawled, less distance to cover. And yes, some amazing individuals, lots of which were well-travelled themselves, so they sort of had an idea of my experience too. And I quickly felt like this was a community I wanted to be a part of and to help grow.
Michael, who's now your husband, started the group, and then you joined the fold. Tell us about how that started. Yeah,
so I, again, being a little bit of a... probably an arrogant 24-year-old, bossy boots, as I like to, probably nicer way to put it, decided that if I was going to work in hospitality here, I was going to work in, the best spot in town. So I found out from, the people I was meeting with in that first week where that was, or where those places might be. And strangely, fortunately enough, the Everleigh that required five staff at that stage and hadn't seen anyone leave in its first 2 years, I think we're about 1.5 years, 2 years open by that time, had a vacancy. So quite quickly, I think that was kind of the hot vacancy in town. I had a couple of friends, a friend who was running Black Pearl at the time said, I'm going to take you in to meet Michael, and you should go and check it out. And I was like, well, that sounds amazing, but I don't know if I'm quite qualified for a venue like that. And what's, I guess, amazing and still is about the Everleigh is that we hire on personality and on, enthusiasm and above skill set. All of that can kind of be trained and taught. And that was the conversation that I had with the bar manager and the floor manager at the time was, why do you want to be here? And what do you see that you think you would be able to bring something to? And for me, it was the theatre of that venue. I walked in and was just, from entering on the corner of Gertrude Street, where there's at the time it was the diner, going through this checkered floor and up the stairs and getting pounded with this incredible smell of freshly pressed ginger and fresh lime juice, and the noise of the huge rocks of ice like rattling in the tins, like when you're standing in the foyer. Like everything about it was considered, detail oriented, theatrical, and I just thought, like, this is a dance I want to be a part of. This is something that I want to bring myself into and learn from these people. And I sat at the bar. Michael didn't speak to me, really. He was working the shift. So he just said, sort of sit there. And I watched everything that was going on. I watched these incredible women on the floor at the time just do this dance like I'd never seen before. And I ordered drinks, is what Michael would tell you. Why did I get the job? It's because I ordered drinks and I knew that I was going to pay for them myself. I ordered cocktails. He said, I have all these people coming asking to trial in my bar, and they assume that I'm going to give them some free drink at the bar, and then they, trot off, don't even ask to pay. And I sat there, and I think I had felt like I needed to prove my cocktail knowledge, obviously, and my ability to drink, and ordered about 4 drinks, 4 different cocktails, and paid full whack, even though I'd arrived on a credit card and didn't have a job yet. So he was like, that kind of sets you apart in my book. I'll give you a shot. I started working as a host, as everyone really does, or certainly did back then at the Ev, and you kind of progress through the ranks from there. Again, came in a bit bossy bootsy, and there was a small team, and they weren't really doing anything with the back room, the Elk room, which is a stunning space in the Everleigh. They used to have the odd function in there, but no one kind of had any events experience and didn't, or marketing experience, didn't really know what to do there. So I sort of said, can I make this my baby? Can I? I've seen these incredible events I've been a part of in London, and theatrical experiences is kind of my thing. So we started running stuff like the Classic Cocktail Book Club, which became a monthly Monday night gig where Michael and Sebastian Rayburn would wax lyrical about old cocktail books and tell stories about cocktail culture from day dot. It was just incredible, and the Melbourne community started coming in. It was a free event. And tasting drinks from all the different cocktail books, and things like that. Another event called BYO Bartender, which is where the bartenders came out onto the floor, and the customers would bring in groups of people would bring in their own spirits and mixes, and the bartenders would have to just make something with them on the off the cuff, which was really, really fun. Just kind of started getting into the thick of it pretty quickly, and trying to show my worth, I guess. Very quickly, Michael and I were very fond friends, and very considered about the fact that we couldn't take that to the next level without knowing that it was going to be very serious, because we were a team of 5 people and didn't want to rock the boat. Michael had always had a rule that staff weren't able to shouldn't get together or court because it might disrupt the family, and we wouldn't want to make that. We wouldn't want to, jeopardize the bar. So we took it really, really seriously, and nothing happened for a long time. And then we actually asked permission of the team to be together. They kind of reluctantly said, yeah, I guess so. If you guys are really serious about it, I guess so. And from there, it was hard to stop us. We both had big ideas, and Michael was, wanting to think about opening another spot. So once we got our heads together and got creative, it kind of all took off.
The creativeness really took off, and all of the venues that you have a really strong identity and an individual brand. What does it take to build those and create such different and unique specialized venues?
I think it takes experience in the world as a first starting point. Like, I really think that you need to have, I think that the creative concepts that come out of Michael and I are from emotional F&B experiences that we've had around the world. They're from like moments in time that you're almost trying to capture or recreate. And it helped, I guess, that sort of strangely, Michael and I have been in the same parts of the world at different times. So we'd had the same experiences in certain venues. We were like-minded about what was emotive for us, and what really makes the difference in terms of those experiences. and how to kind of marry all those ingredients together to make something really special. Michael is absolutely the kind of visionary in terms of of building the concept visually. So he'll walk into a space and I find it completely bizarre, like just kind of build a bar in his mind, or build a venue in his mind from looking at this, what apparently looks like quite a, rundown or blank space. It'll be built in his head to the detail. So it starts with that for us, and then from there we'll kind of discuss the language. I'm kind of more of a words person. He's more of a visual person. I'm more of a words person. So I start kind of unpicking what that identity is for that venue, and that obviously is related to everything from the interiors to the music to the offering to the service style. So we start really unpicking what the unique sort of points about each of those are and how they all come together to tell the same story and what that story is. And we really personify each of the venues in order to get that language and that voice out. Imagining, who is this person? What do they wear? What would they drink? What would they say if they walked into the venue? What kind of character would they be? What do their friends think of them? All of that kind of thing, in order to really create this kind of living, breathing identity for the venues.
As you mentioned a bit earlier, Connie's and Bar Margot was a real evolution pushing into the food area. Why did you go down that path with the bars?
Connie's, both of them were kind of, if you would ask Michael, he would say they were always going to happen. There were things that he wanted to birth, I guess. Like he spent a long time in New York, and the New York slice was a fond kind of, every dinner break from the venues that he was working with, he would, duck out to the corner and grab a slice. And the love, I guess, for a great New York style pizza was deep rooted within him. Beyond that, Margot, the concept had been sort of fleshed out in Michael's head before opening the Everleigh. So when Michael opened the Ev, there was potentially on the table an option to take the diner downstairs. And when he looked at it, he had this idea of creating this sort of New York French brasserie, which we kind of colloquially call the white tile joint. You'll see the number of white tiles in Bar Margot, but I think it became quite kind of a way that lots of these venues in New York and obviously predating that in Paris were defined, was this sort of striking white tile throughout, cool kind of elegant French aesthetic, but then layered with a bit of New York contemporary cool. So it didn't happen with the Everleigh. They didn't have the money to make it happen, to take on downstairs. And that was parked, I guess, for a bit. When we opened Heartbreaker, we wanted to prove that we weren't a one-trick pony. So I think Michael had been in the industry for a lot longer than me, and had been, he was the cocktail guy, right? And that's great. It's great to be the cocktail guy. He's kind of getting a bit sick of cocktails there for a second, and thought, everyone just thinks that we're kind of this, not stuck up, but, we're sort of this very polished, precise, technique-driven cocktail entity, and we're really regarded and respected for that. That's great. Like, what else can you do? And at that stage, I remember us sort of saying it'd be really easy to go and open an Everleigh Sydney right now. That would be the thing that people do. We're not going to do that. We're going to open Heartbreaker. We're going to show what else we can do. And it was, I think that kind of, whenever we think about future planning for the business to this day, it has to have a really deep-rooted emotional place for us, like to be able to take that step forward, and we have to have our hearts in it entirely. And where we were at that stage was, we were both, we wanted to drink in a place like Heartbreaker. We'd been together for a short amount of time. We were really loving being in the industry, like at the heart of the industry, like working in the bar. And we knew that, what was missing, I guess, from that scene was that sort of late night offering that was that could offer as much quality as the Everleigh could offer, but in a different application. And that's where Heartbreaker came in, was just let's give the reins back to the people. The Everleigh was all about us telling you what you really should drink, where you should sit, where you should go. We conduct that experience and lead that for you. Heartbreaker was all about let's get the beers smashed out in under 30 seconds, and let's do bottled cocktails so that people can spend more time with their friends or on the dance floor. They can choose their own music on the jukebox. It's like let's give the power back to the guest. So sorry, I was supposed to be talking about Margot there, wasn't I? I've just gone on a Heartbreaker tangent. But yes, so that's why that came next, and Margot got parked there for a minute. That's where we were at. And unexpectedly, someone came down the street who was currently managing the now Margot space as their function space, the previous owner, and said, come take a look at this space. And we were like, not interested, like we're not looking for anything right now. We had a lot going on at that stage, and weren't thinking about opening anything new. We had enough on our plate. And he said, just come and have a look. It's a really cool space. I said, no, not interested. And he said, look, it's got a 24-hour license. And we were like, oh, damn it. Damn it. Okay, we're coming. And yeah, I looked down there in this basement and saw this terracotta walls with these annoying pillars that were in the way that could stop you from seeing the bar, and all these kind of weird cubby holes and this awkward space. And Michael saw Margot, like he just walked. We were in there for 5 minutes, and he was like, "This is it. This is the one. This is exactly how it's going to be." And that was that. We took a leap, and it was probably definitely the most challenging thing we've done today, and in the current climate, I guess still is. But an incredible execution, and something we're really proud of.
Has it been different creating a venue that's so food oriented compared to, say, the Everleigh and bars like that?
I think primarily with the nature of having to run, I'll talk really simply about having to run a kitchen in regards to having to have chefs, like rely on chefs and that expertise, particularly as it's not our expertise either. So, being from the bar and working with chefs rather than being able to at any time, jump in there and make that happen yourself. You're disempowered, right? So that's been a challenge. We, like I said before, we've always come at it from Margot. We still to this day call a bar with food. It is a bar with food. The bar will always kind of be central to the experience, and I think it's important that we sort of market the venue in that way too. Otherwise, you kind of get people going, why was the music so loud? And, why were cocktails being thrust in front of us? The experience is all led through the lens of a bar. But we always wanted the food to be substantial. And if you are eating, we want you to have, expert service and be in a relaxed environment to eat, which, leads to having enough restaurant space to be able to cater to that. So it's been it's a beast of a venue beyond the fact that it runs a full food menu. It's a big venue, and it's we'd been in the heart of the CBD with Heartbreaker, but this, in terms of the level of service that we were trying to execute, it was just on another level. So entering into the world of food was hard, and I think we very much felt under the microscope as bartenders or bar people coming in to open a food venue. Sort of, what are you guys doing here? You're not celeb chefs. What are you up to? This isn't your realm. This isn't your space. But I think that what we planned to offer the world is pretty true to what we did, and it's been so embraced since day one, despite all the closures and what have you. So yeah, it's been a good gig.
The last year and a half has been challenging, not just for restaurants but bars as well. What sort of positives and changes have come from all of this for you?
Our personal growth through trauma. There's growth and resilience. Right. And if you asked me this question probably 6 months ago, I would have had a very different answer. But coming out the other side, we have been so deeply traumatized by the last year and a half. We had our second child 6 months ago too. So just to add to sort of stress levels when you're meeting with liquidators and what have you, that was pretty heavy. But coming out the other side, I don't think there's coming out the other side is not the right phrase to use, but still being here as the tunnel sort of takes a different shape I think Michael and I are closer. I don't know that we could have been closer, but we are closer, and we are more refined and focused in regards to how we want to grow the business and what we want to do. I think everyone kind of went two ways. You either sort of became more cautious and scared in the environment and retracted, or you chose to take a little bit more, a few more risks and charge ahead. And we are the latter, I guess. There's been some amazing opportunities that have come out of such a difficult time, such as the space above Heartbreaker became available, and we're charging on and opening Connie's Pizzeria, so evolving Connie's out of the little hole in the wall inside Heartbreaker and giving her own venue. So opening a venue in this time, which is total madness. It's absolute madness. Like, there's no staff. There's so many challenges, and we are paying off aged debtors and all sorts of things. It's all very, very difficult. But I think that in order to send a positive message to ourselves, to our team, and to the wider industry, I think we felt a responsibility to just keep working and just keep moving, and hopefully that will be the right decision.
You've had many different career paths that you've gone down, but hospitality lured you in. What is it that you love about what you do?
It's all theatre. It's all theatre. I sometimes reflect on, like, how did I get here? How did that happen? But I remember doing my studies, finishing my master's, and being in ECC and thinking about what I was experiencing in that service environment, and what I was learning about in all the theory and what have you around performance. And it's all that exchange that you can have with another human being, and how you can kind of create memories and kind of deeply influence their experience, and that's service. So kind of evolving, how we can play a role in improving service and being in front of people and changing effectively. Like, it sounds pretty heavy duty, but changing their lives, like some of the most memorable experiences in our lives are in these venues. They're in bars and restaurants. They're the pillars that kind of carry us through from celebrations and milestones, and they mean a lot. So being able to create places where people are making those memories, and to be a part of what those memories look like for those people, is just the best career I think I could be in.
Well, it's extraordinary what you guys have achieved, and no doubt there's much more to come as well. We've loved having you on Deep in the Weeds today to hear your story. Please keep in touch, and we'll catch up again soon.
Thank you so much, Anthony.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.